Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right. Well, welcome to another Cloud Podcast. We're excited today, not only because it's Friday, but mainly because we have Andrea Markstrom from Taft Law and a CIO experience with extraordinary experience, has amazing background. So Andrea, welcome to the show and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Jeff, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and happy Friday.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Jeff Young with the CIO from the Confer Group. Jeff, always good to have you as a co-host and helping me out here.
Yeah, anxious for this discussion with Andrea today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Andrea, I'm really excited to talk about your career path, where you've been, how you got into IT. Why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes to just give the audience a brief background of your career and how you moved up through the ranks and now it's CIO over at Taft.
Sounds good. Well, it was definitely not that straight path. I had many winding roads to get to the point where I'm at. When I started out my career actually working for Target Corporation and led a number of different of the technology organizations within Target and initially started my career as an intern at Target running their United Way campaign. And while I was at Target and as an intern, I was just curious about learning everything I could about all the areas and about everybody at Target. And fortunately, because of that is really when I got my taste on life within the corporate environment, as well as there are a number of different career paths that you can take. So when you first set out your career and your idea after college, by no means is that, a straight and narrow line. Mm-hmm. So Target offered me a role in their communications department. For a while, I wrote a lot of the internal communications for their stores. And at that point in time, the video conference technology came into play. So that dates me because that was quite a while ago. But I'll fast forward. I spent 15 years at Target. And it was really that entree of the video conference technology that really got me interested in all the pieces behind the scenes, how they connected together and how they worked. I led the video conference network for a while there. And up until the last role that I had at Target was leading a very highly technical, just brilliant team that ran all of our distribution centers and all the infrastructure behind the scenes for the stores environment. My path on the career, or my path on the technology road was initially, I thought I wanted to be that technical expert. So I, took a number of voice and data classes and certifications and started to design voice and data networks and quickly learned that was not my passion. My passion was truly about leading people and bringing people together. So I went down the project management course and took a number of leadership courses. And that's really has been my path along the lines of the technology spectrum, was just really understanding I'm passionate about bringing people together, helping grow and develop, and what are the business outcomes that we have to achieve, and how can we as a technology team really deliver on the value for the organization. From Target, I transitioned into the legal field. So I've been now 15 years in the legal industry, and it was not, some people might think that's an interesting transition, going from corporate retail into this law firm environment where you have, we have 700 attorneys here. So essentially I have 700 bosses, and how and the why. But I'll tell you, I really have enjoyed that transition and having the opportunity to work with a number of just, again, brilliant people, legal experts, They challenge me every day, and which then, our team is challenged to make sure we're delivering the best service, not only internally for our clients, but also externally. So I started my career working for a firm in Minneapolis called Faegre Baker Daniels, now Faegre Drinker, and then moved out to a firm out of New York by the name of Blank Rome. I was there for under 3 years and transitioned to Taft as Taft and Briggs and Morgan were combining. They combined 2 years ago, January 1st. I joined January 2nd. So right after the combination and right before the pandemic. So it's been a really fun and rewarding journey.
Well, that's quite the story. And I love that you came from the corporate retail side and just got that experience of working for a very large enterprise organization. And I'm sure you picked up along the way a lot of structure and, like you said, leadership along the way that then is translated into this 15 plus year career in the law field. And I know it's not easy working for attorneys. I'm married to one, so it can be very challenging. And they do challenge you a lot too, because they don't take no for answers. But
so 700 bosses is a lot too. That's an interesting number. So Andrea, I think I met you when you were at the middle firm a few years ago at an event, and I applaud your path. I think it's a great path, and I think to be the leader you are on the IT side requires, number one, it requires that technical background. So I always felt it was very important for me as well to have a technical background moving forward, but to transition from that into the leadership role, understanding what you can do to help your 700 bosses. That's great that you took that path, I think. And by the way, we have something else in common. I've been a United Way campaign chair myself.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to get involved in a role like that at your company or your firm. So it's just a great way to understand a different perspective, and also always to give back. And you start to just learn and hear some great stories that come out of your organization that you would never have any idea about. So it's a really fun way to connect with people in a different way.
Yeah, it is. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you're talking about leadership, right? And being in that position that you have now and just throughout your career. Talk a little bit about i.WILL and what you're doing there to inspire women in leadership roles and teaching them to, take those responsibilities on.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So i.WILL, it's which stands for Inspiring Women, Igniting Leadership and Learning. And my daughter helped me with that name for our group. And it really all was grounded in forming a community for women. And it's one of a dream that I've always had is forming a community so that we can all learn from each other, regardless of what role you're in or what industry. We all have a story to tell. And we all have similarities, again, regardless of the industry or our role. We've all been through challenges. So we have an opportunity to share and inspire and learn from each other. So that was really the emphasis for i.WILL being founded. I founded i.WILL about 4 years ago, and that's when I was commuting back and forth from Minneapolis to New York. And I just met some amazing women leaders from all different industries, and thought, what a great time to start. So we started, and I'll fast forward to where we are today. Got about 650 members across the country. And it is a community that truly is for all levels, all women, all industries. And we have, I like to say, 3 pillars. One is the networking piece. We just had a great event last night where we kicked off 2022 and with our intentions on really what do we want to focus on and how can we help each other. And then we also have a give back and paying forward component. So all of the dollars that we raise through i.WILL and our events, we donate to nonprofit organizations that help women. So for example, in New York, we partner with an organization out of New York City's Coalition for the Homeless called First Step, and they help women off of the streets of New York, provide interview skills, resume writing, We've provided mentoring to help them launch back into a career. So we've funded a number of dollars to organizations like that. And then most recently, i.WILL has become a 501c3, where we are also taking in funding and have started a grant fund to help women launch businesses. We just had a pitch competition in the fall where we offered grants to 3 companies, 3 amazing women that have these brilliant ideas for companies that are really going to make a difference in all of our lives. And soon we'll be having another pitch competition. So it's really the basis around i.WILL is all about helping women rise and succeed. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah,
that's a great story.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's a great story. And it's nice to see, like, you're building a legacy. You're, have this great career as a CIO, and it's like, well, how can you give back, right? And you're traveling back and forth for your job, and you're like, and you found this good way and met these, amazing women, and then to be able to share and then give back to the community it's amazing, and we love it. And leadership is such a big part of being a CIO and being a director, any level in an organization, even entry level, right, is learning these leadership skills. One of the things we've talked about in the past, and Jeff as well, is just, IT executives getting a seat at the table, right? They haven't always had the chance to sit at the executive table, but we've seen a big shift in that over the last, I say, several years, probably even more so since the pandemic because of how much is being relied on IT. Where have the two of you seen the biggest changes as far as IT executives getting that seat at the executive table?
Yeah, I can chime in first here. And I'll say, I think there are 2 scenarios out there. One, organizations that understand the value of having the CIO at the table. And then 2, the other scenario where recently, and this is truly, I think, where I've seen or recognized the shift, where organizations now understand the value of the CIO being at the table. Because IT was such a driver and needed to be that delivery when, our whole entire community and world shifted to remote work and, learning how to work in a hybrid way. That was really IT working with the business to make that happen. But my take is, IT is the epicenter of nearly every initiative going on at the company. Mm-hmm. And so we have a unique vantage point that I don't think that many other executives do not, just because we're having constantly conversations with other C-levels, with other business departments, with the business. So we can quickly recognize those themes that run across multiple groups. And we often are the driver of bringing collaboration forward, as well as ensuring that those cross-functional initiatives come off with a success. That's the true value of having the CIO at the table. And the good news is, I really do see that has shifted. And, I'm lucky that at where I'm at, I do have a seat at the table. I know a number of my colleagues do as well. And we talk about that, just that continued value stream that we can bring. And it's so important that we're there.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, and I spent several years not at the table, in a director role, reporting to either CFO or someone of that nature. And I remember waiting till after staff meetings and asking my boss and saying, "Hey, what happened today?" And, "Oh, everything's good. Everything's fine." And always felt like I was missing out. And once you get that seat at the table, it's amazing what you pick up. And I think part of what's made that grow over time, Alex and Andrea, is so many of the requests coming in from customers, from vendors, from audits, from compliance. It all involves information. It all involved IT. It all involved connectivity. And I think top executives started saying, instead of, "I don't really want IT reporting, to me because I don't know enough about it," to, "I know that IT needs to be at this table because they need to hear all this interaction because we keep calling this guy or gal in to meetings to explain stuff to us. So let's just get them at the table. So I think that shift has been there. And obviously the proof was proven out in the pandemic, because without the technology, some companies would not have been able to continue that were able to continue.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big shift, and it's very important.
I think you bring up a great point, Jeff, about, what always the executives coming back to IT to ask questions, and they're getting constant questions, right, from their clients, and especially with all the new compliance and regulatory changes. I think, we have an opportunity to always educate the rest of the executive committee. And that only provides more and more emphasis about why we should be at the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've seen just on our side, on the telecom and cloud side, is just the emergence of just all the SaaS products. Every department now is being pushed into a SaaS world, where whatever tools they're using now are all cloud-based. And it was a slowly transitioning over the last, call it, decade. And then, like we were saying, the pandemic accelerated everything, accelerated e-commerce, accelerated work from home, and all those things. And seeing that happen over the last 10 years is truly seeing the executive get that seat at the table, just like you both were saying. And it's been an interesting transition.
Well, and that's a great example too, Alex, because if we're not at the table, that alone, that example has shifted how we fund and finance projects. And that also has shifted the financial model of a company. So instead of capitalizing certain projects, that's shifted to an expense model. Mm-hmm. And if we are not giving our executive committee the heads up that here's how the industry is moving, we're gonna get caught, and it's not going to be a good story. Yeah. So being ahead of that, I think that's our opportunity to continue to educate our executives on here's what's coming. Here's just always be mindful and be considering this.
Yeah, and it's really come down to, where do you want your competitive advantage to be? I think that's where you see big tech with Microsoft and all the companies up in Silicon Valley have really pushed that out into the industries. Because if you're not up with technology, think about what Amazon's done since they started. And so now you start to look at it as like, well, we don't have a competitive advantage if we're running on all this premise-based equipment that can't scale, that can't grow fast with the company, or, up or down, depending on the needs.
Yeah, and the other thing that's heightened the interest in having IT at the table, of course, has been security and risk, mm-hmm. and business continuity, disaster recovery, all those things. Really, people look to that technical executive for answers and for assurances. And, it's just been, there's been a lot expected of the IT executive over the last several years as you look at the threat landscape and the change in how we all do business.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. And what I wanted to transition to was, digital transformation, right? That's now a key word in the industry on companies digitally transforming. And Andrea, like, what have you seen? I know you're part of you got into Taft about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. And I'm sure there's some big initiatives that you were faced with on, digitally transforming the organization. So what have you seen in that realm? What does digital transformation mean to you? And we'll kind of dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So specifically at Taft, we're focused on unifying our two firms and bringing our two firms together. And as part of that, I've always had the focus of how can we just essentially make our lawyers' jobs easier. And it's all about what can we do to create and drive efficiencies within our work, automate whatever we can so that we're providing a streamlined service internally and also to our clients. And really the focus is all about our clients. We are relentless about providing great client service here. And it is ensure that we are very fast to respond. We are nimble, we are innovative and differentiating our service. So when I think about digital transformation, and I'm going to say digital transformation and innovation and law firms doesn't always go together in one sentence. Because historically, I mean, law firms, we're a paper business and we've got, massive amounts of data. And so creating that shift and how our lawyers practice, each of them really practices their own craft. So how do you create change within an industry that is focused on they've built their own craft? And so it's been really a fun environment to watch that change accelerate. And what digital transformation means to me is changing how we deliver services to our clients. And that starts with everything on how we onboard a new matter, all the way through to a life cycle of how we are either our attorney is delivering legal services, and what can we do to provide continued value-added services to our clients. So we've a few examples, everything from shifting all of our accounting and billing processes to online and electronic, to how we are now working with our clients. We're bringing our client into the conversation, say, how can we help solve your business problem? And really understanding what they're struggling with. And not only how we're providing legal services, but other consulting added services beyond that. And creating everything from a collaboration portal so we can give them real-time data, financial information, or do they need assistance on a contract lifecycle management system? There's so many different examples because it's our clients have different needs. So it's really understanding how can we help them solve their business problem and be the differentiator. Within law firms, our clients have choices. There are so many different competitors for law firms. It's not only other law firms, but it's in-house legal teams. It's now the big four, so the Deloitte, the P&E, the Ernst, E&Y, they're all getting into legal, as well as another vein called alternative legal service providers. So these consulting services. So we as a law firm, we need to go above and beyond to differentiate ourselves to make sure our clients come to us and we're their choice. So it's a long story to answer your question, Alex, but digital transformation to me is really transforming how we deliver our services and driving value for our clients.
Which is why you clearly have a seat at the table, because the one thing I think IT executives have to weigh, it's one thing to be interested in seeing new functionality and new gadgets, new fun things to do, but you have to weigh every one of those against what's your mission. And I was the same way. I mean, I worked for a metals company. The bottom line was we made and sold metal, and you do services to your law clients. So you have to take all of these technologies and offerings and you have to say, okay, does this make a difference, or can this make a difference in helping the bottom line and the functionality and the response time of our company to help our customers? And you just have to draw the line there, and you have to understand both sides. You have to know the business, because you can't improve the business if you don't understand how the business is running. And you also have to understand the technology. So that's the part that makes your role special and makes your role difficult, more so than in some ways in some of the other C levels, although they all have their own challenges and their own roles, right?
They do, yeah. I love your point, Jeff, on understanding the business and then how we can help solve that with either the technology solution or a service. And it's all about how do you bring the priorities of the business back to your team and that combination of that people, process, and technology to deliver on what's of value. And there is so much to do. So our role is, combing through all of that list of projects and what's the top ones that's essentially going to, provide the biggest value.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love how, you're bringing in the clients into helping design the experience. And we've talked to a lot of customer experience leaders on this podcast, and it's always about, people, process, technology. And that's where we talked earlier in the podcast with you about how IT is being brought into so many different parts of the organization, because it so much depends on customer success or customer experience, and how you can use that digital transformation to keep that, to stay on the bleeding edge of customer experience and making sure that you're competitive against all the different competitors that are coming to the market that weren't there 5 years ago or 3 years ago even.
And I think it's important too to have that constant feedback loop. So you deliver a service or a differentiated service or solution to a client. It doesn't stop there. It's that continuous feedback loop on what else, how else can we help you? How else can we improve upon this? It's continuous improvement. And I know we've gotten some great feedback from our clients on that they really appreciate that level of attention and detail.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit before in our pre-call about design thinking. I haven't heard as much about that as some of the other topics in IT. Talk a little bit about how you're approaching that and what that looks like for how you are managing IT today.
Yeah. So design thinking, a way to look at that is you start with a business problem and then start to ideate or brainstorm and generate ideas, and then start to build prototypes based on that. And how I introduced it here at Taft is a little over a year ago, we kicked off our innovation task force. And it's all about, again, the focus on how can we differentiate our firm, our services, how can we really be an extension of our client? And part of that was reinventing, or I shouldn't say reinventing, it's inventing new. It's inventing the art of the possible. So design thinking, we brought in a firm to help facilitate and really help train us on design thinking. So they trained the whole innovation task force, which is a cross-functional group with all different roles, including our practice group leaders, legal assistants, paralegals, and some of our senior administrative teams. And we divided into different groups, and we're presented with business problems directly from our clients, and started from scratch and thinking about, all right, let's erase everything that we've always done and how we deliver service to the clients, and how can we do this in a new way? And the outcome of that was 6 different ideas that are different lines of services for clients. And that's, we brought our clients in to kind of almost test that concept to see if we're on the right path. And now we are co-creating solutions with clients. And it is just a different way of thinking about how you can deliver value and service. It was interesting because it is getting people out of the box of how they work and continually asking the question, yes, and. So yes, we can do this, and what else? And so, if you continue down that path for so many iterations, you're going to come up with a great solution and some really new, interesting ideas. And so that's really how we kicked off our innovation program here. And we continue to think about those design principles in really every project that we take on now.
That approach to build momentum in your firm is fantastic. The question I've got to ask, that I bet our listeners are going to ask when they listen to this, is how in the world did you decide to prioritize all these good ideas that came up? Because you obviously couldn't take them all to fruition at the same time. So it's curious how you kept score on that?
Yeah, so we brought them forward to our managing partner and chief operating officer, as well as within the innovation task force, that we walk through each one of those ideas and where do we start, first of all, and which one is going to drive the biggest value for our clients. And so with that collective feedback, that's really how we prioritized and how we started. And it's about getting started. It's taking baby steps. And I always, I think you try these new concepts, and I always tell my team, listen, it's not going to go perfect always. And it's learning about what did we learn through the process and fail forward. So we're going to fail, but we're moving on. And what did we learn? And the next iteration or the next MVP is going to even be better. So again, going back to that continuous improvement.
Being willing to fail's part of it.
Yeah,
you have
it
to
is.
be able to move forward.
And you need to have the culture that accepts that. So.
Yeah, it definitely culture is a big part, right? And that's just like bringing it full circle, right? With having IT at the table and being able to, the digital transformation, it's all about the, culture, and it from the top down, from the CEO or to the managing partners, to say, let's make these changes, and to see like where the market and industry is going, and where digitally and everything else with leadership and whatnot. But Andrea, it's been a pleasure. I told you this 30 minutes went quick. It went really fast.
Go quick.
I told you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun speaking with you both today.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that the i.WILL organization was up to 650 members that quickly. That's quite a tribute. Hats off to you and your efforts on that. Well done.
Thank you. It's been a fun journey. We couldn't do it without everybody that's included, and takes a village, right?
It absolutely does. But thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you out there at some of the events that we've met at. But enjoy the weekend. And Jeff, thanks for co-hosting this with me. It's been a good one.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.